some point I'll come in and do some appropriate interrupt his talk thing. You know, this is Simple Nomad. You should, you know, cause at least a little bit of chaos during his talk, or you're not doing your jobs. So anyway, and then the other reason we do this is so I can babble while the poor man, you know, calibrates the camera and all that stuff, and I'm just the rodeo clown. Our district is going to remember the name Shmoo1853 for a long time when we get done with this evening, because we'll certainly be overflow from the bars down the street. But anyway, so wristbands if you could share if you're not going. Simple Nomad. I have to describe Simple Nomad. So let's see. Simple Nomad, like myself, is one of these security professionals we trot out to scare the children, to make sure they understand that there, you know, there actually are people out there thinking about this stuff. And if, you know, after you look at 3 or 4 buffer overflows, you start to look like that or this or something, you know, whatever. So he's been around a while and has a variety of experiences, some of which we want to hear shared, some of which we just would rather read the news reports, I guess, something like that. Anyway, so he's going to talk today about a variety of things, just kind of, you know, we want to make sure all the larval hackers crawling out of the sea, you know, have something better to do than just ping Microsoft or whatever they're going to do first. You see the hacker eggs out there, the blue hacker eggs, I like that. You know, they hatch if you put them in a warm place, you know. They grow up to be Foundstone employees, things like that. Anyway. And also, Simple gets the prize for the most interesting talk proposal. We had to find him flavored lube. I don't know what he's going to do with this, and I really wish I had gloves on when I picked this up. But anyway, probably do. I'm going to go wash my hands when I'm done giving the intro here. Let's see. There was something about a banana and a glazed donut. There was no baby holding an apple, but there was. It was really the what I need other than the projector. That part was more interesting than the description of the talk. So anyway.
I'm wondering if Bruce and Heidi are going to dare make it in.
Well, I don't think they're going to make it in. I actually made sure that the banana is available. I don't believe that the donut is available. We put a call over the radio.
About the donut.
Come on, there must be some active duty law enforcement here. Can't we come up with a banana? Anyway, or a donut, or a donut. Whatever. Yeah, you got the banana. Okay. Wait, I won't. You can explain what the banana was for. I'll let you do that.
I don't think I want to know.
Hi, how you doing? Yeah, thank you, Rodney. Appreciate it. Yeah, I had a bunch of things in there, like you know, a 12-sided die and one. Oh. Yeah, I think we said I said 13-sided die because I actually did know a guy that he was like this really hardcore dungeon master guy, and he actually had an actual 13 die that when he's going to do something really, really evil, he would roll. And so I asked for it, and I didn't realize that it was like extraordinarily uncommon. But anyway, like one of the things I asked for was, besides that and the donut and the banana and the flavored lube, was I'd asked that either Heidi spank me while Bruce watches or Bruce spank me while Heidi watches. I didn't care which, they could pick. And if they'd actually been brave enough to show up with all the items, I had a performance piece worked out. But no, all right. Don't worry about it. I do appreciate the effort, but nonetheless, just as punishment, since Bruce isn't apparently man enough to even show up in here, I just wanted to show you. This is kind of a photo. This will be available from the it's from the Bruce Potter page, and I'll. Oh, he's in the other talk. All right. Well. Okay, don't tell him about this, but I've got wallpaper for him, and there's a contest that we're going to have involving the wallpaper, which we'll do something with at next year's ShmooCon. But anyway, let's get on with the talk. He can come in and interrupt if he wants. That's cool. Okay, I'm a Simple Nomad. I'm with NMRC. I also work at Vernier. You guys got shirts in your swag bags because I tricked my employer into being a sponsor, and I says we should put shirts in there. It'll be cool. And so as long as black is your favorite color, I hope you really like them, which I think with this crowd it usually is. And yes, I'm still all jaded and bitter as I was from last year. Basically, my agenda, I did a, oh. Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah. There's. Dude, you really do not want to be in this room. Are you going to stay in here for the whole talk? I already got my wristband. Anyway, so what I'm gonna do, I got all these different odd things to talk about, and I'll just kind of whip through them. So this is just, you'll see what I'm going to be talking about. I'll talk about my last year's talk, kind of a follow-up. I'll talk about a thing using gray. If anyone uses gray listing to fight spam, I wrote a utility that I'll be releasing after I get home and actually upload it. A way to do OS fingerprinting via PPTP, which is kind of an odd one. And a quick thing on how to detect firewalling devices. It's kind of a thing that I've done on pen tests before, and it's pseudo interesting, and so you guys might find it interesting. I have a Dish Network DVR. I had it for a couple of years. I took it apart. I got some nice hardware prawn pictures to show you from the inside of that, and tell you a little bit about that. And probably the best one is the fingerprinting IDS IP. I found an interesting use for, or interesting way to do this. It's kind of funny. And then, oh, and you probably noticed the girl at the side of the picture. Someone asked if she was of age. Actually, the girl in the pictures, NMRC actually hired a photographer and a model and had professional pictures done, and everyone always says, why don't you show more of the pictures? So also show several pictures from the in the photo gallery section of the presentation, so you can see more of Bethany. Oh yeah, there's a random picture of Bruce's crotch. This is what happens when you decide to edit your slides after getting back drunk last night. I actually left them all in, all the ones I put in. Yeah, at least the walk wasn't for nothing. All right, so the Hacking the Friendly Sky I presented this last year. The video is online, so if you're interested in it, and it was a very painful talk for people who had a fear of flying. But it was, yeah, about 10 minutes of content and me just being kind of a funny, goofy guy. And basically, to kind of sum it up so you don't have to run out and go watch the video real quick to catch up. Anyone with a laptop, they can access other laptops wireless if they're incorrectly configured, and the default configuration on 2000 and XP, especially XP SP1, allowed this to happen. If you connect it up, let's say you connect it up to, you're trying to configure your link, talk to your Linksys or D-Link WAP. So you go in there and you mess up and you set yourself up as an ad hoc. All right, so now you're the one that's out there broadcasting it. Okay, that happened somewhere a lot with a lot of people. Now, go to the airport, or my thing was the airport since I travel a lot. You know, the guy that tried this, he goes to the airport, he opens up his laptop. By default, it would normally go to D-Link or whatever, and it can't find it. And since the last ad hoc he had up was D-Link, it would start to broadcast on an SSID as D-Link. And you go to the airport, do this when you guys are heading home, get out your laptops, and see how many ad hoc D-Link, T-Mobile, setup, et cetera, ad hoc networks you see out there. These are all laptops that have done this. Or, more than likely, when I go to the airport and I open up and I've connected up to D-Link before, and someone else has the ad hoc, now I connect up to the ad hoc, and now next time I boot up by myself with no one else around, now I'm broadcasting an SSID of D-Link. Believe it or not, it's a configuration virus thing. Anyway, it got basically I got a whole bunch of press over it, and it was kind of funny because you had, bloggers blogging about what another blogger said about a reporter who got all of his facts from 2 other reports, and so there's a lot of facts that were wrong in it. And I had admitted when I presented that it was kind of a lame thing, and a lot of people also that were at the con admitted it was lame. But a lot of people I've heard from, they said, hey, yeah, I tried that out. It actually is a lot of fun. The real follow-up was XP got patched, It was not a. You have to actually go and find this. I mean, it's not like it is part of the Windows update. And it was originally they were going to put it in the next service pack, but they apparently had an opportunity because they were fixing to go ahead and correct the behavior. So XPSP2, you load this up, and it no longer happens. Or you can just, turn off your goddamn wireless when you're on the plane, and it won't happen either. And also, yes, configure your wireless to only connect infrastructure WAPs, and that takes care of things. So do this on the plane on the way home too. And the plane won't crash, okay, because there would have been planes falling from the skies everywhere if this was the case. Open up your laptop on the plane, look for wireless networks on the plane, and you will find. On the way here, I found there were 3 ad hocs on the plane. Just people open up their laptop, no clue what they were doing, and there you go. All right, gray listing. Okay. Everyone know what gray listing is? Okay, I'll do a quick thing of it. Basically, when email comes in, you set up, if you're using gray listing, your mail server is saying, I want you to go away, come back 10 minutes, come back in an hour, whatever. Okay? Now what happens is spam usually is being shoveled out through some, botnet zombie guy, and he's shoveling this stuff out as fast as he can. He's not an RFC compliant mail server because he'd have to queue mail in this case. And queuing mail, that slows things down, and that's not how these things are designed to work. So someone came up with gray listing, and this actually is completely legal as a part of the protocol. And the address, typically, you can configure this differently, but at least I use SendMail, and I'm using the gray. There's a Milter gray list thing that I use, and it holds the address that it came from in the database for 24 hours, and then after a while flushes it out. And what happens is, since spam, not only have you got you get only good mail that's coming through. In theory, you can also whitelist stuff too if you've got like mailing lists, like I have like the security focused stuff all going through whitelists and everything. But it all gets logged, and so what happens is what you now have is you have IP addresses of potentially zombified spam spewing systems. And so you can actually take this list, and this is the funny thing too, is usually when they're connecting and you're getting slammed by this thing, what's happening is they'll try all the different names for your domain, okay? So you get a whole bunch of them in a row, and each one of those is going to be a log entry in your mail logs. So, and as we know, all the zombies that are out there usually it's like DSL, usually not dial-up, but it can be dial-up. I guess it could be pretty much, but you're getting a lot of, like from a Class C, you may get multiples from a Class C simply because you've got a lot of crap going on from those guys. And thing is that the same zombie could actually come back, or at least it's from that same Class C, so it's probably, that's a chunk of, like some, cable modem, DSL, whatever, so you know that, okay, there's some stuff that shouldn't be sending me mail anyway, probably from that area. This thing called zhunt, and zhunt basically goes through these logs, and it counts and correlates all these gray list log entries, and basically I can use the output of into something I can throw into access.db, or you can just have like a nice long text list of bad addresses. You could throw that into your IDS, or whatever, or put it in your firewall and block all traffic from it, whatever you want to do. It can handle really large files. I think the largest one I ran again with this was 100 megabit, and it doesn't end all the spam, but it does. The gray listing does stop a lot, and then if you're able to add in all the class, and it also look for things like, oh, you got this Class C here where you've got more than one from. See, I'm a real Nazi about this stuff, so I go ahead and just, if I get 2 hits from the same Class C, I block the whole Class C. Okay. And, I mean, I'm even blocking like Class Bs and all the Class As from Asia, because I don't speak Asia, so there you go. Well, you know, and other things like I also block all of Hotmail and all of Yahoo and all those other, you know, free mail addresses, and so there's a lot that gets blocked. But there you have it. Oh, and by the way, it would really make sense to write this in a. You would think, wow, I could probably do the same thing writing something like this in Perl or Python or something like that. So naturally, I wrote it in C, and it's about 500 lines of code. I was looking for I was wanting to play around, you know, with something in C with some old routines I had, and I just came up with the idea to do this. So there you have it. Anyway, I basically also include a kind of a threshold, because if you have a lot of users on your system that are subscribed to the mailing list, it could look like, and if they're not whitelisted, it might actually look like it's spam. So you can actually set a threshold as to, you know, how many I'm going to say is bad before I actually, you know, make it bad. Oh yeah, here's a picture of Bruce's butt. By the way, if you guys were how many people were out waiting in that huge line out front before registration? A few of you? Okay. This is a picture of Bruce's butt while back, so it's a little tense, as you can tell from the picture there, while he's saying, God damn it, just get the code up there and let's get going. There's this huge line. So anyway, there you go. All right, OS fingerprinting via PPTP. When you're running Nmap and you're going to be doing some type of fingerprinting, Nmap typically needs one open and one closed port, okay, for you know,
so
pseudo-accurately
your
identify.
complaint is the process is too long, but you're not giving a time which is acceptable.
That's excellent. Was that over? That was the radio, wasn't it? Excellent. Good. All right. Wow, we're like listening in on their conversation. Someone should let them know that they're that we're picking them up over here. Yeah, we might hear something. Yeah, I'll just show slides and let them talk. We'll see if it actually works out. But see now, okay, now in some cases you can do port 80, you know, or you can actually say, okay, well if it's a Unix-ish port, let's say it's port 22, it's probably not Windows, although it could be. Good Lord, the noise in this place. All right, now what if you only had 1723 open, which is PPTP? Is that really, is that coming through the speakers, or is that just on the other side of the wall?
I'm going to start this with you this time. Just hold on to that.
All right, someone bang on the wall and tell them to shut up.
Well, you can practice self-defense. You can,
all right.
you can mitigate it in your own environment.
So
what
all right, so we'll try to talk over the. I'll talk over the noise. I'll talk a little louder. It wasn't that funny. All right, so okay, here's what we'll do to piss them off. I want okay, on 3. Shut the fuck up. We're gonna do. All right, 1, 2, 3. Shut the fuck up!
You cannot make a judgment on somebody else's needs.
Oh well. All right.
And that's a risk they.
Yeah, there's gonna be people in the other talk saying, "Oh my God, what the hell?" He missed. They all ran out of shmoo balls. They're all pissed. We're hearing the. Is that from the other talk or is that the radio?
Speaking of cults, we have giveaway books. Publishers give us books to give you guys anyway, so the giveaway book, I had to pick out which book was appropriate. When I saw cult, I figured, you know, simple Nomad's the first thing I think of. So giveaway is something.
All right, okay.
And of course, I walk in when you have the crowd chanting.
Let's talk to the ZDI guy about that.
I mean, the IP vendors definitely make sure.
It doesn't matter. We're good. We're good. All right. So basically, back to the topic at hand. What if we only have 1723 open? Okay. What do you do if you want to fingerprint the OS? First off, why does this matter? Okay. If you have a PPTP day. Hey. All right. Thank you. If you have a PPTPO day and you've got shellcode and you only got one shot at it, and your exploit is going to be OS dependent, you may want to make sure the OS is what you think it is. Okay, that's one reason why this matters. Also, if you're going to do some type of brute force thing, or you're going to try, various things to talk to it, there may be some client issues you may want to work out. So if you know what's on the other end, that might help. Although in theory it shouldn't matter, but there you go. And what's also interesting is, like, you find a lot of things like DSL routers and other things like that will actually have 1723 open, and you can actually talk to these using possibly some of the default user IDs and passwords associated with those particular devices. And if you know what the device is, then you can actually quicker about breaking into the system. And there's a few vulnerabilities that do exist out there for it, and most of these are denial of service. There's at least one remote code in there, so there's some interesting stuff you can do with this. Now, basically, here's how you do it. And I actually wrote a program, which again I'll be releasing after the con. Okay, you send this magic packet. Basically, these particular bytes, you don't have to write them down. I will make the slides available after, for everyone to have. But basically, that string there with 128 zeros on the end of it, and then when you send that in, you'll get a response packet, which is the exact same size, and this will contain, among other things, it'll contain what's called a firmware version. Okay, now the firmware version appears to be, I don't know if there's any standard to it, but basically, there's certain firmware versions that match up, like the build numbers for Windows correspond to the firmware version, so you can specifically say, oh, this is XP, this is 2000, and it'll give some other information in there, such as a lot of times it'll give the host name as well as who the vendor is in the reply. So yeah, again, it does seem to be unique for each OS. So here's an example. I've X'd out where this was, but this is live data off the internet, and this was just 2 or 3 Class Cs that weren't blocking 1723 at the particular area in Australia I was actually pointing this stuff at. And as you can see, I compared, also I was able to do, I was using Nmap against these as well, because I wanted to say, what does Nmap say this is, and then what is the PPTP probe tool that I wrote it is. As you can see, Nmap in a couple of cases where it's saying, it's IBM AIX, but it wasn't. It was actually a 2003 box and whatnot. So I mean, you can get actually fairly accurate. In this particular run, I saw actually a huge number of these Draytech things, and so these DSL routers, and they probably have a default user ID and password. So there you have it. All right, so moving on, since we still got a lot to cover, finding a firewalling device. I'm not talking about finding a firewall, I'm talking about finding a firewalling device. Okay, so basically, it's not just a firewall itself that I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, if any type of device that's blocking you based off of IP address and port combination only. It may not even be looking at state. A lot of routers do this. There are some cheapy firewalls that do this kind of stuff. Some of the firewalls that the personal firewalls that you put on your individual machines, they do this kind of thing. And there are a few ways to detect if you have a device like this. Now, this is kind of, I've mainly seen it inside corporate networks. You really won't find this on the perimeter because it's, it's probably good to have a nice firewall on your perimeter. This is something that's kind of a toy. If you're making if you're doing pen test, and this is kind of a nice little thing to make the report a little bit more complete when you've mapped out all these, internal devices that are doing firewalling, and say, I think here's what the rules are, et cetera, et cetera. Now this, and I don't really have code for this. I really didn't have time to code anything up, but so I'm going to just show you pseudocode in the slides, and then someone can write the damn thing. Okay, save me some time. All right, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. The sin fin issue, what this is that a sin fin, that's not a legal thing, okay? When you send in it should be a sin, you send in, you get the sin act back, and et cetera. Now we're talking. Now we do the three-way handshake. We're talking. And in 2003, there was this issue where people were discovering that devices may not be blocking a sin fin, and if they're not blocking a sin fin, probably because they're seeing the fin and go, oh, he's trying to shut down some type of connection, I'm going to go ahead and allow this through. And you could actually just like go right through several firewalls by just making sure that you had a fin packet. And if anyone's ever played with Todd McDermott's packet purgatory, is there anyone familiar with that? Anyone? Okay, okay. Thank you, Sharky. Okay, okay, ask Sharky, okay, or ask Google about packet purgatory, and you can write a real simple thing in Linux or whatever that you've got packet purgatory running on that will take all your sin packets and put a fin flag in them, and then whammo, if you encounter one of these devices, you just blow right through it. Okay, we've covered that much already. All right, now, here's how you go about finding the devices, okay? First off, you send a SYN to an open port because we want to measure the TTL, and we want an open port that's not blocked, okay? So we get our TTL, and we have to keep track of the TTL separately. And we also want to keep track of what I call a hop count, okay? Now, this hop variable thing, there's a reason for it, and that is because on your time to live on a normal, like, say, a SYN pack, okay, like say on a Linux system, it may be the starting TTL may be like 64 or 128, whereas an ICMP packet, the starting will be 255 because they know something crazy is going on. I may need these extra hops to get all the way back to the target or to wherever I'm going. So you have to keep track of them separately. Then what you do is you send a SYN to a closed port. Now if you get an ICMP unreachable, and the source address of that ICMP unreachable is not the target, obviously you found your firewall, okay? That's an easy one. Now if it's if you get a unreachable code 0, 1, or 3, and you can look in the ICMP RFCs and to see what these things actually are, but it's like, you know, port unreachable, host unreachable, et cetera, et cetera. And then again, you go down and you measure the time to live on that, okay, and then compare it. And you have to do that, like I said, they sometimes start out at different large numbers and then increment down, so you have to figure out the difference on this. And I had found this out when I wrote a tool a few years ago when I was working at BindView called dspoof to determine is this address actually spoofing, and you do it to measure to see exactly how far away the device was and use this exact technique. And then the other thing that's a nice little trick, because sometimes that won't happen, but see, now you send a UDP packet to port 0. And this is another extra one that actually gets you a little bit more information. So you can actually say, okay, I've actually found it. This I've found more firewalling devices with than anything else, is this UDP 0. And you can do all this like with hping if you wanted to get creative with how, you know, all the flags and stuff. It's fairly easy to do. Or you can write your own code. Just cut and paste out of the and pretty it up, and whammo, you're ready to go. Oh, this is a picture of Bruce's crotch at DEF CON. All right. Now, you know, you throw them in. Well, what the hell? Okay, so I have a Dish Network DVR. I have a model. I think it's a 550 is what it is. There's 3 partitions. It has an internal hard drive. It's 120 gig. All your recordings are stored on the partition, and you can, if you want to, you know, you pull your drive, and let's say you've recorded something on Dish Network, and you want to burn it to CD or DVD or whatever. Then what you do is you pull the drive and you plug it into something on a system and just mount it up. You mount it up read-only so you don't screw something up. And you can copy down the largest files that are out there on that third partition, and you can just basically grep through the accompanying files with them. They all have, like, you know, 3 different extensions on them and stuff. And you can play them with MPlayer. Okay, MPlayer by default will play it. In fact, that's what Dish Network uses to play it because they run Linux on this. So this is basically a Linux drive. And if you plow around on Dish Network's website, you will find links to their source code. Okay, so you can, now it's an embedded, they do this embedded firmware thing, and I haven't gotten that far, you know, figuring out how to get code to magically get pushed up there and what the hell does it do, because this is a working Dish Network DVR, and I'm under strict instructions at home not to fuck it up, okay? But the thing is you can obviously, since it's a hard drive, you know, 120 gig, and this is the one thing that my wife said, oh, this is a great idea to do. To increase the amount of record time, you simply make a larger drive, obviously. You duplicate the size of the first two partitions and copy those files over. And then on that third partition, the bigger it is, the more record time you have. Very simple. And so anyway, just to show you, there's a few pictures. These aren't as good as the Bruce crotch shots. I apologize, but you know, there's the back of it. That's exciting. Oh, you guys can ooh and ah on these and really free. Yeah, here's the off. There's the Broadcom chip. They use a Broadcom stuff in there. Here's the tampering with seal voids warranty that you have to cut through to get to the drive. There's the actual drive, the 120 gig drive. There you have it. Now, some things to try in the future. The thing is interesting, at least on my brand of this, and this is what I'm probably actually buy a new one, just so I can play with this old one. It's got a USB port on it, and it would be really fun, I think, if I was able to come up with some custom firmware to load onto this thing, to where I could actually activate that USB port and then run Ethernet, hook up an Ethernet to USB guy on there, and now I can copy off all my things I record. That'd be kind of cool to do. I haven't gotten that far yet, and if I do, you guys will hear about it next year, perhaps in this very. All right. Here's the most interesting thing I actually have to talk about, and if you have questions, I hope you have the questions over this and want to discuss it. Fingerprinting IDS IPS systems. Now, the general idea, if you're doing this, you're going to use a throwaway account because you want to determine that the IDS IPS is there, and in doing so, you've now yourself up to the target. Okay. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, I mean, some of the techniques I'm talking about here, I mean, I played around with this and done this kind of stuff as experimentation. Some of the ideas I got were they're from some not so friendly people that hang out in deep, dark, encrypted silk chat servers all over the place and stuff. So some of these are actually real techniques. I got some ideas from them and ran some things by them to say, hey, have you done this and that kind of thing. But basically, you pop a box somewhere and you're going to use that box to probe. And what you're going to do is you're going to use the data that you've collected off of this to direct future attacks, probably not from that same box, probably from yet another compromised system. Now, anytime you're blocking the attack and you're in attacker mode, that's bad. But if blocking the attack, it's good if you're in fingerprint mode, because you're trying to figure out what the hell is on the other side. What's going on here? Do they have something running? Now here's the thing. Not all exploits and various vulnerabilities and everything are covered by every single IDS vendor that's out there. Okay, it makes sense that some are not going to have. Let's say the vendor came onto the scene in 2003. It doesn't make sense for them to have signatures for an issue from 1998 for a piece of software that's not supported, not anywhere on the planet on any system anywhere. Why even have that signature there? Maybe some of you are figuring out where I'm going with this. So what you do is, by tracking what gets blocked, what doesn't get blocked, you can determine what the IDS IPS vendor is that's protecting you. Now you say, okay, IPS, it's going to be pretty obvious. IDS, I don't know how many people have done this. How many people do pen tests? Just out of curiosity. Okay, we've got a few people do pen tests. All right. So what you'd be doing during a pen test is, let's say that you shovel in all your evil stuff in there, and then you're going to, let's say you may do it from, like, say, you're doing it from, dark IP space or something, where the lookups that come back, if there were lookups, they'd be looking at these weird addresses that actually don't exist. Okay, so now you're going to say, okay, well, no one does that, right? Well, actually, there are some vendors, not many, but there are some vendors that will, on the fly, live do a reverse lookup. And so you'll immediately get a response back. So obviously, if you trigger the IDS, and it's one of those, you'll immediately get a response back because it's going to do a reverse lookup. Okay, now, an IDS shouldn't do that if it's being stealthy. However, what's going to happen is, later on, there may be a report that's generated. So if a report is generated, in the process of generating that report, the reporting mechanism does reverse lookups, then now you know what happened. So sometimes in the gathering of this data, it's going to take more than just 2 or 3 seconds to figure things out. And what's interesting is you can tell, like, if the reverse lookups happen every 4 hours, okay, then you know it's probably a cron job that's generating this report. So what you do is you just figure out what times it's doing it, and then you now have a 3-hour and 59-minute window to proceed to wreak havoc and terror and do bad things that you're going to do. Or if you're doing pen testing, obviously, then wouldn't be nearly as bad. It'd be, well, good for you. Well, it'd be good for you regardless, whether you're a bad guy or a good guy, because, woohoo, pop the box. Sometimes I've actually seen this, where all of a sudden all the reverse lookups occur Monday morning at 8 a.m. Okay, because that's what time the guy gets in, and you can see them, and they're coming in like about a few seconds apart. So he's typing them in manually, kind of looking around, and actually, okay, well they do look. And occasionally, sometimes what will happen is, if you're doing this type of thing, if someone's actually paying attention to the IDS, like 3 or 4 minutes later, all of a sudden that address is now blocked because they got the alert and it says, oh, there's someone goofy and, trying to break in from the Ukraine or Taiwan, or I'm going to go ahead and block them, and they'll block the IP address. The also funny thing is that you pay attention to where the lookups come from. All right, I don't know if I got this in the slides here. Okay, no, I don't. I have a longer version of this where I go into detail on this. But you look at where the reverse lookups are coming from. So let's say that your target is in Houston, and you've been probing them, and you're pretty sure that's where most of their core company is. And the reverse lookups occur 4 or 5 hours later from a DSL line that's like in Katy, Texas, which is just outside of Houston. Okay, that's the admin's house. He's getting alerts at home. You now have the IP address of the admin at home who's now checking it. So then you pop that box, and he's probably dual tunneled VPN'd in, and now you got yet another way to get into the place you're trying to get into. So there you have it. So you pay attention to where it's coming from. Oh, and this is another thing. If you guys know anything, hopefully a few of you do, about programming. If you control the DNS server they're going to be doing the reverse lookups on, all right, you can actually do some fun, like set the TC bit on all requests, so everything coming, all their DNS requests will now be switched over to, you're going to say, I have to talk TCP. Okay, so now they're going to start talking TCP to you. You run. Now you can remote fingerprint the guy that's doing the lookup, and then you can tell, based upon earlier firewall probing and stuff, you can say, okay, he's behind the firewall. No, it's an automated device that's doing it, et cetera, et cetera. And you can gather more information that way. All right. Now, experimentation with various exploits may tell you if you're getting blocked by a snort system, but is it really snort? In snort by Marty and crew and SourceFire, okay? Because there is actually a difference, and that is because there are a lot of, believe it or not, there's a good chunk of IPS vendors. They're using a snort engine inside their device, and they haven't licensed it. They're using it illegally. And this is fairly common, believe it or not. I'm been in the security space and worked in, for vendors for a long time. I've seen this to where someone will grab something that's open source and then not adhering to the license, go ahead and use it. This happens to Tenable with Nessus a lot as well. And it's really funny when you've got some rack mount device from some vendor where they're using a combination of Snort and Tenable. So they're sitting there waiting for a lawsuit from perhaps 2 people. Now, the thing is, and I've actually talked with the guys at both companies, and I'm not representing either company, but the thing is that it costs a lot of money to go after these guys from a legal standpoint. Things may change for SourceFire since they obviously just IPO'd, and there's going to be a slight influx of cash. Maybe they'll send some lawyers after a few people that are troublesome for them, or who are flagrant about it, and like not even change the wording in the description of the signature that they just basically downloaded off the Snort site. So the thing is that most of these vendors that are doing this thing on the inside, they're not doing it as good as SourceFire does it, okay? So there's actually a bit of a difference. SourceFire, they take a little bit more care in their signatures, and particularly in their correlation engine and all that other kind of stuff. So they do a little bit better job than just straight Snort. So I'm going to refer to things that are Snort-like, and I'm not necessarily saying they're Snort. I'm talking about some of these other vendors that are out there. Now, some of these vendors, they do their own signature writing, okay? And then there's other vendors that they outsource their signature writing. And believe it or not, if you decide I'm going to become an IDS vendor, I'm going to start doing this tomorrow, but I don't have enough signatures, I'm going to outsource. You actually have a choice. There are multiple companies where you can go, and they will write signatures for you. And that is, and I think in 2 companies' case, that is all they do is write content to go into IDS, IPS, vulnerability scanners, et cetera, et cetera. So you can get your Nessus check from them, and you can get your Snort signature from them. All right, and I actually, at the company I work at Vernier, as I stated, and we do have an IPS thing in one of our NAC devices, and that IPS device that's in there, we don't have bandwidth to do the signatures, so we actually outsource to a company and get signatures in. So I know the quality of signatures that exist out there. Now we have to go through and troubleshoot. That's one of my jobs. I have to look at every single signature that comes in from these guys. None of them get just thrown into our box blindly. I guarantee you that there are other people out there that just take signatures from signature vendors and shovel them right into their IPS and say, well, they said they tested it. I will go ahead and trust it, and I will trust it in line with everything. Because that's the other part of my job, is a lot of times I'm writing exploits to shove through here to make sure that those signatures actually work. All right, here's the fun part of this. Okay, when you're doing the probing, older flaws, say from say 2000, they may not be covered on these newer systems, like I stated earlier. Now, why would someone have an old signature in their system? Why would they have something in there from 1998, from 1999, still hanging around in there? Why block something from then? There's no reason to. Okay, number one, there are kind of these government unofficial standards that exist out there where the guy says, oh, well, according to my list here, before I can bring this piece of crap that you've put together for me into my organization, you have to look for the PHF bug, okay? You have to look for just these real horror, because that was on the list that the guy before him created sometime in the last century, okay? So, and they keep that around. So a lot of times, to make sure they get themselves approved, they'll go ahead and leave these old things in. It looks good in the brochures to say we have 12,000 signatures. Now, they're not going to tell you, oh, by the way, in reality, only 2,000 are actually going to apply to you if you're a normal human being on the planet. But, we've got 12,000 signatures. And there is a huge a lot of vendors and having, you know, like I said, I used to work at BindView and we had a vulnerability scanner that I worked on. And all marketing talked about the whole time was, let's get those number of signatures up. You know, ISS is kicking our ass because they keep saying, oh, we've got X number of signatures, don't use BindView's product. You know, it didn't matter that I busted my ass coming up with the signature that allowed me to detect with one thing in there, you know, 80 different flaws, okay? And there's no efficient, because that was the other thing is, can you do it faster? Well, no, I can't do it faster if I've got to check these 79 other things that I know don't exist because I checked the first one to begin with. So there's always this big fight, keep the count high. And so that's why you'll have signatures that are from there for forever. So I'll give you some examples of some signatures. Now, I don't have a definitive list to give you to say, if you look at this and look at that and look at that, here is the IDS IPS. The reason is I started asking, because I got friends that work at most of the other vendors, I started asking questions and they're like, no fucking way am I telling you anything about our company's products, okay? So but there are some ways you can extrapolate, and so, but I'll give you some examples. So if you want to play with this stuff, you can get an idea. Now this one's the WebHits one. This is from it came out in early 2000. I believe this only works on IIS3 or IIS4 on NT. I mean, no one has this up and running, okay? Unless you're in, you know, China. I think there's plenty still running up in China and, you know, places like that. But for the most part, no one's running this crap. Okay? Now, this is one of these things where Snort does not have a signature for this. So if you've determined that there is something blocking me, there is an IDS in there, and this gets through and you don't get a response back, no feedback from this one, okay, then it very well could be Snort. Like Juniper's NetScreen has the signature for this, for example. So that blocks it. IIS, I believe they have it as well. Here's another one, the MySQL COM table dump overflow. This one gets a little bit interesting because there are differences there's a difference between vulnerability and exploit, okay? Everyone follow me with this? There is a complete difference. You have the exploit, which is what, you know, if you're a skitty, this is what you type in and it goes and allows you to deface pages or whatever it is you're going to do. But if you're a real attacker, what you really care about is the vulnerability itself. Now, when this particular bug came out, there was it basically works out to, you send in this evil packet first, and it has your payload with the shellcode in it. And then you send in a second packet, and basically there's a value here that's, in the published exploit, there was a value here that's 3, and there's another value over here that's supposed to match up with that, but it's set to 2, or I think it's the 2 is here, and this should be 2. But nonetheless, the numbers are supposed to match up, and it has to do with size, so how much memory to allocate, et cetera, et cetera. Whammo. It creates a buffer overflow situation. Now, the published exploit had the 3 and the 2, okay? So people were writing signatures for the 3 and the 2, including some of these signature vendors, right? And so what happens is all you had to do is do a 4 and a 3. And you got by the IDS, IPS, because all you're doing is your flaw. It's not necessarily the exploit. And so you really care about what the actual vulnerability is. So, and this one's decent because, okay, Snort doesn't cover this, and NetScreen Variant, that should be Variant, I'm sorry about that. I love catching typos in the middle of presentations, that's good. At least I caught it, because I'm still a little bit drunk from last night. Still got a little bit of a buzz going on from last night. Yeah, Snort doesn't cover this. NetScreen, like I said, they cover one variant of this, okay? So so you can actually start using variations. This is why this is really hard for me to gather data on it. What? 5? Weren't you supposed to hold up something at 15? No? Okay. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it. By the way, Druid, everybody. He's a hand. He's a great guy. What the hell? I guess if you give me more time, you would have got more applause. All right. Third example. This is for the Archaea. There's one of the buffer overflow ones. Now, again, this is one that really killed me because most of the snort-like vendors and the NetScreen, they all cover the Metasploit framework thing. Now, some of them cover it not by looking at the flaw. I swear to God, the published exploits, so you're taking the snort like vendors especially, that are using the pre-canned exploits coming from the, or signatures coming from the signature vendor, they were looking at the size of the packet, okay? Because the size of the payload, that actually is put into the packet. So they're saying, okay, well, Metasploit is going to be this size of a payload because that's a defined item inside the exploit code itself. So they trigger off of that particular size because it's an abnormal size for the backup software. All right, so, and they're not looking whether it's too big or too little. They're looking for a specific size. All he had to do was change the size off by, and the exploits still work because you could be off by a few bytes either way. So instead of sending this thing in there and having a size in there of 4096, you just set it to 4090 inside the Metasploit stuff, and boom, away you go. And it was not picked up by the signature that was written by the vendor. I got one more here. Probably going to piss off the Nitro people because I found it during Shmoo1853 Labs when I was playing around. This one is a little bit harder to do but this will give you an idea. Like, let's say that you got in on wireless and you're going to check the perimeter device. So you're going to start, and you go to your, and I have one, I know a lot of other people have these, where you have your evil web page that you go out to, and you've got all your exploits all ready to go that you can start downloading on their client side because you're attacking a client you've popped inside some company. And so I was doing that, and I found this one, which is basically, this is the, from 2004. A lot of vendors do not have this. NetScreen ISS, they do. I can't even remember now if Snort does or not. Nitro does not cover this particular one. And so that gives you an idea of what I'm talking about with this. The thing that's interesting, if you really serious about this, especially if you're doing pen testing and stuff, ISS publishes all the CVEs they cover. Juniper, if you know where to look on their website, they publish all their CVEs. Call up and ask these vendors, what CVEs do you report on? Right there, you should be able to come up with enough data to correlate through and say, okay, I take these 10 or 15 older exploits and use these techniques. I pretty much determine what IDS, IPS vendors they're using. And it comes in handy too, because if I'm done some reconnaissance and I see that I've got maybe 20 choices of exploits that I'm going to start with to try to get in, and I know that their IPS is brand X, and brand X covers the first 15 on my list, the first one I'm going to attempt to do is number 16, okay? Because it's not on the list that this particular vendor covers. So it kind of is you're doing your thing. All right, so as we're wrapping up here, this is the NMRC photo gallery. So you see the girl on the right side of the screen. Her name is Bethany, and believe it or not, my wife was cool with it. She actually wrote the check. Okay, because we paid for a model and photographer because we thought it'd be good for slides and stuff. And as you can see, she's actually wearing an NMRC T-shirt. So, and everyone kept saying, where's more of Bethany? Well, I'll show you a few of Bethany's shots. These are from the pictures there. There's one of Bethany, nice. Then here's another one of Bethany, very nice. Okay, here she is proudly sporting her NMRC teddy here. And then and there's this other really, really hot model we got a picture of. Really sexy, yeah. Anyway, that's what I have. So if we got a couple of minutes for. Oh, I can go. I got 10 extra minutes. Druid, everybody. No, I know I'm out of time. If anyone's got some questions, I'll take a couple real quick. If you've got any questions. Next question. Actually, I don't know Bethany's phone number, to tell you the truth. I know the photographer's phone number. And if you're really that sick, then just Google her name and track her down like the stalker you are. All right, well, I'll be around, so if you got any other questions, track me down.
We don't have much time, so I wrote down what I wanted to tell you. PF and SpamD from OpenBSD, you'll love it. Gray listing tuples, I'll tell you about that. With gray listing, they were getting 3 million SMTP connections. With gray listing, they dropped 175,000.
Yeah, cool.
So my contact details